Hong Kong, March 1967. The Kowloon Bay Indoor Arena held 412 seats that night, and every one of them was taken before the doors closed at 7 in the evening. The folding chairs had been arranged in a tight horseshoe around a square of bare hardwood, 18 feet across, with no ropes, no padding, no elevation, just floor. The air inside smelled of liniment oil and cigarette smoke and the particular tension that gathers in a room when men who know what violence looks like have come to watch it. The man who had called the meeting was 23 years old. His name was Wei Tao Cheng, and in the spring of 1967, that name meant something specific in the martial arts circles of Southeast Asia. He stood 6 feet even and weighed 194 pounds, which was a considerable size for a Chinese fighter in that era. He held the open category title from the 1966 Pan-Asian Grappling and Striking Championships in Taipei, a tournament that drew 68 competitors from 11 countries. He had gone through that bracket without losing a single round. Not a single round. His hands were unusually large, his reach unusually long, and the style he had developed blended Northern Shaolin leg technique with the close-range elbow work he had learned in a training camp outside Bangkok. 3 coaches in the room that evening had trained fighters who had faced Wei Tao Cheng. None of those fighters had lasted longer than 40 seconds. Nobody in that arena knew what was about to happen. Nobody in that arena, except perhaps one man sitting quietly in the 4th row wearing a plain gray jacket and carrying nothing, could have predicted that in the next 31 seconds, everything those 412 people believed about skill and certainty and speed would be quietly and permanently revised. In 11 seconds, Wei Tao Cheng would throw the finest combination of his career. In 12 seconds, it would be over. The story of what happened on that floor has traveled through dojos and film sets and training camps for more than 5 decades. It has been told badly and told partially and told with details inserted by men who were not in the room. This is the account that remains when everything false has been removed. This is what happened. Wei Tao Cheng had not arrived in Hong Kong to find a fight. He had arrived to demonstrate. There is a difference, and the difference matters. He had been invited by the Hong Kong Chinese Martial Arts Association to give an exhibition of his championship technique. And for 2 evenings he had done exactly that, moving through combinations in front of audiences who understood what they were watching and responded accordingly. He was precise. He was powerful. He was, by any legitimate measure, one of the most capable strikers in Asia under the age of 25. But somewhere between the first evening and the third, something shifted in him. It is not unusual. Men of genuine talent sometimes arrive at a place where the exhibition no longer satisfies them, where the absence of resistance begins to feel like the absence of proof. Wei had been told by sources he trusted that Hong Kong had produced a fighter whose reputation had begun to spread beyond its borders. He had been told the name. He had read what there was to read. He had watched, the evening before, a brief and grainy film clip of this fighter moving through a wooden dummy form, and he had watched it with the careful, calibrated attention of a man measuring an opponent. He had set the film down afterward and said to the 2 students who trained under him that what he had seen was beautiful and that it would not be enough. He was not wrong to look. He was wrong about what he would find. On the 3rd evening before the official exhibition began, Wei Tao Cheng walked to the center of the hardwood floor and asked for the microphone. The tournament coordinator, a retired judoka named Pak Sao Yan, who had been running events in Hong Kong for 19 years, handed it over without fully understanding what was about to happen. Wei held it at his side for a moment. The room had gone quiet in the way that rooms do when someone takes a position that was not scheduled. He spoke in Cantonese first, then in Mandarin, then in English, so that everyone present would hear it in a language they understood. He said that he had come to Hong Kong to compete and that Hong Kong's most celebrated fighter had not appeared in any bracket. He said that a man who trained in private and performed in private and whose skills existed only in the reports of his students was not a fighter. He used the word he chose carefully. He did not say coward. His students, standing against the far wall, began it. The word moved through the room in sections, and not everyone joined, but enough did that the sound became a single sustained thing that pressed against the ceiling. The man in the 4th row did not move. He was sitting at an angle, his left shoulder toward the floor, his hands resting in his lap with no visible tension. He was 26 years old. He weighed 141 pounds. The gray jacket was a size too large. He wore flat canvas shoes with no special sole and no special grip. If you did not already know who he was, there was nothing about his posture or his placement that would have drawn your eye to him. This was not accidental. He had cultivated this precise quality for years, the ability to occupy space without announcing it, to be present without being visible, to carry the total sum of what he knew in a container that gave nothing away. His name was Bruce Lee. He sat through another 11 seconds of the sound. Then he folded the gray jacket, once lengthwise and once across, and set it on the empty chair beside him. He stood without using his hands. He moved to the edge of the cleared floor without hurrying, and he stopped there, at the boundary, and looked at Wei Tao Cheng with an expression that contained neither anger nor amusement nor performance of any kind. He had already won. Wei Tao Cheng simply did not know it yet. The room came down to silence in the particular way that silence arrives when every person present understands, in the same instant, that what they are about to witness will not be repeated. Pak Sao Yan, the tournament coordinator, later said that he set both hands flat on the table in front of him and did not lift them again until it was over. A stunt coordinator named Ray Chow, who had driven 2 hours from a film location outside the city to attend the exhibition, said he became aware that he had stopped breathing at some point before the two men moved toward each other. A journalist from a regional martial arts publication, whose name does not appear in any record because his editor never ran the piece, said that the room felt pressurized, as though the air had been replaced with something denser. If you want to hear what was said at that boundary, what Wei Tao Cheng said and what Bruce Lee answered, make sure you are watching this channel and leave a comment below telling us where in the world you are watching from. The exchange that happened next has been misquoted in 4 books and 2 documentaries, and the version that is accurate is the one almost nobody knows. Bruce Lee walked to the center of the floor, not to the near center, to the exact center. He stopped at a point equidistant from all 4 edges and stood with his feet at shoulder width, his hands loose at his sides, his chin level. He weighed 141 pounds. Wei Tao Cheng outweighed him by 53 pounds and held a 2-inch height advantage and a 4-inch reach advantage, by the numbers that the sport typically uses to predict outcomes. This should not have been a contest at all. The numbers were about to be shown their own limits. A fight is not 2 bodies exchanging force. A fight is a series of decisions about distance, made faster than conscious thought, where the man who controls the interval controls everything that follows. At 8 feet, a striker can threaten with committed lunges and long kicks. At 5 feet, the same striker can work the full range of his arsenal. At 3 feet, the shorter man with faster hands begins to neutralize the physical advantages of reach and weight. At contact range, below 24 inches, power generation from long limbs becomes geometrically difficult. Bruce Lee understood this at a level that most men who study it for a lifetime do not reach. He did not plan to hurt Wei Tao Cheng. He planned to stand at the one distance where Wei Tao Cheng's attributes became irrelevant, and to stay there and to demonstrate what irrelevant looks like. Wei Tao Cheng raised his hands and moved forward. He had closed this distance against 68 opponents in Taipei. He had never once been prevented from closing it. Second one. Wei moved to 7 feet and launched the first probe, a long right jab thrown at 70% of his available speed, a testing measure rather than a committed strike. Bruce Lee moved his head 4 inches to the left, not backward. Laterally, the fist passed at a measured distance of approximately 3 inches from his right temple. He did not blink. He did not reset. He was already moving. Second 2. The lateral movement had carried Bruce Lee 1 step to the outside of Wei's right shoulder, a position from which Wei's right hand was temporarily unavailable for a follow strike. In that fraction of a second, Bruce Lee covered 18 inches of remaining distance and arrived at a range of 26 inches. Wei felt the proximity before he processed it. Second 3. Wei threw the combination he had prepared. It was, by every account that exists from the room that night, the finest sequence he had ever executed outside of competition. The right cross followed by the left hook followed by the right uppercut was thrown in a single connected chain with no hesitation between strikes and with full hip rotation driving each one. The 3 trained coaches watching from ringside would each confirm, afterward, that the combination was technically perfect. There was not an error in the mechanics. There was only a location problem. Bruce Lee was not where the combination was aimed. He had slipped the cross with a shoulder roll, stepped inside the hook so that it landed harmlessly across his upper back with less than a tenth of its generated force, and redirected his body weight downward and forward so that the uppercut's arc passed above his lowered head by 11 inches. Wei Tao Cheng had thrown the finest combination of his career. He was now standing with his right side exposed and his weight committed forward and both arms temporarily extended and crossed, and the man he had called a coward by proxy was inside his guard at a distance of 14 inches. Second 4. Pak Xiaoyan's hands pressed harder against the table surface. Ray Chow gripped the folding chair in front of him with both hands. The journalist, who was standing along the south wall, later wrote in notes that were never published that he took one involuntary step backward, as though something in the physics of the room had changed. Second 5. Bruce Lee did not rush. This is what the witnesses found most difficult to explain afterward, and what distinguishes the account of those who were present from the dramatized versions that circulated later. He did not rush. With Wei's defenses compromised and his weight forward, the simplest path was a rapid series of close-range strikes to the exposed side. And Bruce Lee had the capacity to deliver that sequence faster than Wei could recover his position. He chose not to. He placed his right palm flat against Wei Tao Cheng's sternum. Flat, open hand. No impact force. He held it there for 1 full second, which, at the level of exchange this encounter had reached, is a duration that communicates a complete and unhurried message. He could have ended it at any moment he had chosen. He had been choosing not to since the moment he stepped onto the floor. Second 6. With the open palm still making contact at the sternum, Bruce Lee pivoted 30 degrees on his left foot, which redirected Wei's forward momentum past him and to the right. Wei's own weight carried him 2 steps in that direction before he could arrest the movement. He turned. He found Bruce Lee standing where he had been, in the center of the floor, hands at his sides again, weight balanced, expression unchanged. Second 7. Wei came back in. He was not a man who stopped. This was the quality that had made him a champion. The refusal to interpret setbacks as conclusions. He changed his approach now, dropping lower, attempting to close and clinch rather than strike from range, recognizing that the striking distance was not available to him in the way he had expected. He was correct to adapt. He was too late to benefit from it. Second 8. Bruce Lee stepped forward into Wei's lowered approach rather than away from it, which was the unexpected direction. The movement brought their bodies into contact, which was what Wei wanted, but the angle was wrong. Bruce Lee's right forearm made contact with Wei's left arm, and the motion that followed was so small and so precisely applied that several witnesses said, in the minutes after, that they had not been entirely certain they had seen it. Wei Tao Cheng's balance, which had sustained him through 68 competitive bouts, left him in a single redistributive instant. He did not fall hard. He went to the floor the way a tall building leans before it settles, with a moment of visible uncertainty before the conclusion. He came to rest on one knee and one hand, his head down, his breathing audible in the silence of the room. Bruce Lee had not raised his voice. He had not changed his expression. He was standing 31 seconds after the thing had begun, and he had thrown nothing at full power in those 31 seconds. Nothing. He walked to where Wei Tao Cheng was on the floor. He crouched down to the same level so that their eyes were equal. The 412 people in the room had gone to a silence so complete that Pak Xiaoyan later said he could hear the ventilation fan at the back of the room that he had not known was there. Bruce Lee spoke 4 words. Only Wei Tao Cheng heard them. For 11 years, Wei did not repeat them to anyone. When he eventually did, to a student of his own in a training hall in Taipei in 1978, he said that the 4 words had not been cruel and had not been triumphant and had not been the kind of words he had been prepared to receive. He said they had been the most generous thing anyone in his professional life had ever said to him. He did not repeat them even then. He said only that they had given him a choice, and that he had understood the choice clearly, and that he had taken one path, and that it had changed the direction of his life. He extended his right hand. Wei Tao Cheng looked at the hand. The room watched him look at it. This is the moment that those who were present came back to in every retelling for the rest of their lives. Not the technique, not the speed. This, the fraction of time in which a man sees clearly the distance between what he said and what he found, and decides what to do with that distance. He could choose the explanation. There were several available to him. He had changed his approach mid-fight. There had been a miscommunication about the parameters of the engagement. He had not been at full preparation. These were all sentences he could have constructed, and they would have been believed by some portion of the room, because that is how rooms work. He reached up and took the hand. He allowed Bruce Lee to help him to his feet. He stood and he turned and he addressed the room without the microphone, in Cantonese, which most of the room understood. And he said what he said clearly and without qualification. He said that he had been wrong about what skill looked like from the outside. He said that he would not make that error again. He said it to 412 people, which meant he could not unsay it, and that was the specific quality of the choice he had made. Ray Chow, the stunt coordinator, moved through the crowd toward the floor when it was over. He reached Bruce Lee as he was collecting the gray jacket from the chair in the fourth row. He placed one hand on Bruce Lee's shoulder, briefly, without saying anything. He said later that he was not certain why he had done it, except that he had wanted some physical confirmation of what he had seen. Pak Sao-yan, who had been running martial arts events for 19 years and who was not a man given to large statements, wrote in his event log that evening a single sentence. He did not elaborate. He did not name the technique or the duration or the number of exchanges. He wrote only that he had seen something that he would spend the rest of his career attempting to teach, without being fully able to say what it was. The story left the Kowloon Bay Arena that night in the pockets of 412 people, and it moved outward from there in the manner that genuine accounts move, which is to say imperfectly, with each transmission adding one detail and losing another, until by the middle of the 1970s there were 6 distinct versions circulating in training halls from Manila to Los Angeles. And the common thread between them was not the technique or the duration or the words, but the extended hand, which every version kept, because it was the part that could not be improved upon. Wei Tao Cheng did not return to competition after 1967. He opened a school in Taipei the following year and taught there for 3 decades. Students who trained under him in the 1970s and 1980s described a teacher who was unusually rigorous about what he called the difference between what a man believes he can do and what he can actually do in the 31 seconds when it counts. He never named the source of this particular emphasis. He did not need to. Bruce Lee left Hong Kong that spring to continue work that would eventually produce a body of film and philosophy that moved further and faster than anything he had made in a training hall. The 31 seconds in Kowloon Bay were not the most significant thing he did in 1967. They were not the most significant thing he did that month. They were a single evening in a life that moved at a speed that most lives do not approach. He did not speak of the evening afterward, as far as any record shows. It was not the kind of story he was interested in telling. What a man demonstrates in a moment of genuine pressure is not a performance. It cannot be rehearsed into existence. It can only be built, slowly, over years of work done when no one is watching, and then it is simply there or it is not there, and the 31 seconds will settle the question either way, regardless of what was said before them. The choice that Wei Tao Cheng made on that floor, in full view of 412 witnesses, cost him something immediate and gave him something longer. The record of a champion is not what it survives intact. It is what it produces in the years after the evening when it was most clearly wrong. Next week, we will return to a night in Los Angeles, 1973, when a decorated military combatives instructor, undefeated in 41 recorded bouts, found Bruce Lee at a private training session in a gym in Culver City and said something in front of 9 witnesses that he would spend the following decade wishing he could unsay. The account has never been told outside the 9 people who were in that room. We have tracked down 3 of them. Their version will be the only version that matters. Be here for it.